Hello again and welcome back to our mini-series on MDing in worship. If you haven't checked out the previous videos, I'd really encourage you to do that just because we're building up from video to video. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking at MDing and playing your instrument well. Now, it's a classic difficulty with MDing, and something that every MD will face is being able to play your own parts well while also MDing. And it's not an easy thing to do. Thinking about making useful calls, watching the worship leader, and doing other MD associated stuff while also playing your instrument well. Now, the first thing to try and do to get over this is know your parts as well as possible so you can play them without really thinking. If you can do it without thinking, it feels like you almost have more brain space to make calls. This is also a skill that can be practiced. Think about all the things that somebody does while driving, changing direction, speed, navigating, changing gears, indicating, etc. And still they can hold a conversation most of the time. But holding a conversation isn't so easy for a learner because they're not so comfortable with it, not so used to it, and actually takes up more of their focus, more of their attention. But it only really feels possible once driving feels natural. And that's what we want our parts to feel like. We want our parts to feel natural. We can also practice this skill and speed up a little bit by, as I mentioned, listening to those playlists as I mentioned in previous videos, and making calls with those playlists along with the song. Now, it feels a little bit silly making calls along to a worship playlist, but it can help practice it. And you can do it while practicing your parts as well, which doesn't add any time, but actually can only help you make better calls as an MD. But even then, it's still not easy, and it's not going to go perfect 100% of the time. Trust me, I know. So to combat times where I get a little bit lost trying to MD and play my parts, I try and have certain safe spots on my instrument, which is in my case, a guitar, to try and return to if I get a little bit lost. For example, I try and know where all the one notes, the root notes are for every song, because as a guitar player, if I get really lost, I can probably just hit the one note and it'll probably be okay. But better than that, if I get lost, I'll try and go to simple chords because it can help just buy me some time where I figure out where I am again. I often am playing lead guitar while MDing, so this can happen a lot, getting confused by trying to make a call. I might miss a beat, for example, and I try my best to recover, but often it's okay to fall back onto simple chords or play something more simple, and it can give you that time that you need to help you MD and play your instrument to the best of your ability. As a bass player, you can also just hit the root note to just continue playing, maybe play something a bit more simple if you're getting a bit lost. Or as a keys player, if you hold the one chord with a pad, the root in your left hand and the 1 and the 5 on your right hand, I'm told that's a really good way to buy some time until you find your feet again. And this means that you don't drop out from the song entirely, but can still just buy yourself some time until you find your feet and get yourself out of a bit of a muddle. And the other thing that can make playing your parts and MDing so much easier is to know your gear and your instrument inside out. As a guitar player, I am often guilty of this. I can often find my pedal board distracts me from what I'm meant to be doing, meaning that I don't play my parts or MD as well as I perhaps could. And if I can make it any easier for myself, I should try. So for example, for me recently, I've started using the preset function on my delay. So I have to think less about what my delays are doing and more about what the rest of the band is doing. And I know presets aren't possible for every instrument, but for example, if you're playing bass or keys or guitar, try and know how to bring up certain sounds straight away and so that you can rely on them. So it's easier for yourself when you're playing your parts, and so you can think less about your gear. This often means we can't experiment as much during rehearsal with different sounds while MDing because we've got to be focused on what everybody else is doing during rehearsal. So I'd really encourage you to try and experiment at home and know your stuff so that when you come to rehearsal, you know what sounds you're using for each part of the song, and therefore you can spend better time focused and your attention on what everybody else is doing and helping in rehearsal. So as a roundup from this video, practice making calls while also playing your parts, and know the safe spots in your instrument, and try and simplify your gear so you can free up some of your headspace to MD to the best of your ability. So thank you so much for joining me in this mini-series, and as always, we'd love to hear from you and how you've got on, and ask any questions that you might have left over. Do get in touch at worship@birminghamvineyard.com, and yeah, we would really love to hear your stories. Again, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.